we've saved the best for last, which is our Toastmaster to speak.
Have a really good idea that sounds really good on paper, and then when you get up here you're like, there's a lot of people in this room. Well, it's too late now. So everybody, welcome. Today is my 111th birthday. That is not quite right. So we're going to wait a little bit for the improbability field to start to settle. It's right now at 10 to the power of 1 against and falling. So we're just going to settle in for a bit. I'm a little discombobulated. I've just flown in from a small planet in the vicinity of Betelgeuse. And I don't have to tell you lot how hard it is to find public transport on this, the unfashionable end of the Milky Way galaxy. So that was a bit insensitive. You lot have to live here. But offense is taken, not given. So let's just leave it at that. And the more astute of you may have noticed that I am here without my trademark second head or third arm. This is done for tax purposes, but make the checks out to Zaphod Beeblebrox. So, and 8 to the power of 1 against and falling. So I guess we can start going, but some things might be out of whack. We'll just have to roll with it. So, people of the planet Provo, ape descendants all, small furry creatures from Alpha Centauri. I see we have a few mice in attendance. The honor is mine. And it has just occurred to me that if you are not familiar with Douglas Adams or his works, there might be a little confusion. So, anyway, I have a couple of housekeeping things that I need to get through. So, before we get to the dish of the day, number one, what you're going to hear tonight, none of it is original. Think of it more of as a remix. I am no orator. I'm telling you that which you already know, which of course is from Shakespeare. Second, if you are parked next to a very black ship, you probably have to move your car. How black is it? It's so black that light would fall into it if you're looking at it. If you look at it and your vision kind of slides off of it, it's probably that car. If you have to testify that you are not Anish Kapoor to look at this car, it's probably that car. Let me put it to you this way. If you were walking and looked at this car and said, how much more black can it get? And the answer was none more black, you have to move your car. 4 to the power of 1 against and falling. So when the con committee asked me to be the Toastmaster of LTUE, I of course immediately said yes. And then I thought, I have to find out what LTUE is. I didn't know. So I started to look it up, and then I was familiar with it. It's the question, it's life, the universe, everything. Of course I know what that is. But not the symposium part. I really didn't know. So I asked Marvin, and he mumbled something about life, don't talk to me about life, and wandered away. But I still needed more validation. So I went to the trademark Encyclopedia Galactica. And here is what the Encyclopedia Galactica has to say about the LTUE Symposium. LTUE is a 3-day symposium on all aspects of science fiction and fantasy, comprised of panels, presentations, papers on writing, art, literature, film, gaming, and other aspects of speculative fiction. LTUE is a place to learn all about life, the universe, and everything else you love. That's a fantastic definition, but didn't sound like someplace I'd like to go. So I decided to check a more authoritative source. So here is what the Hitchhiker's Guide has to say about the LTUE Symposium. Mormons. So there was a hyperlink though. And I checked and clicked on the hyperlink, and there was an expanded definition. Can anyone guess what it was? Mostly Mormons. 2 to the power of 1 against and falling. All right, so you guys brought me here to be the Toastmaster, so I better master a toast. And here is one from an old one, from a region on your planet you call France. Bread, milk, eggs, powdered sugar, and maple syrup. And we have achieved normality. And if you don't mind, this is sliding off my arm, and I'm going to lose the wig and these glasses because they are a little hard to see out of.
They're awesome, though.
They are amazing. I got those off Etsy. They are fantastic. And I'm getting ancient, so now I'm back to just mundane Michael Haspil. So, another thing, if you ever want like the rarest, best imposter syndrome you can get, right? Ask to speak in front of people you respect at an institution you value. It's so good. So when Deirdre asked me to be the Toastmaster, my first instinct was actually to say no. I was terrified. I saw who had been Toastmaster before, and I was just like, I don't belong in this group. I haven't achieved that much. I don't have anything to pass on. But there's like kind of a rule of thumb that I use, that nothing new can come from a place of comfort. And usually the more uncomfortable it is, the better it is for you in the long run. So I said yes. And then I started thinking about what I was going to talk about, and I was just like, I don't know that I have any wisdom to pass on. But my actual life's purpose might be to serve as a warning to others. So hopefully you can get something out of this. And when I look in the mirror, I see some gray hairs, and I was born in the 1900s, so I might have some wisdom to pass on. And here's what I came up with. Folks like lists, so I came up with 5 things to pass on. And the first one is about time. And relax. You have so much time. Success takes time. Allow yourself time to breathe. Douglas Adams famously worked for years before the BBC picked up the pilot script for Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Ironically, right about the same time, he got hired by Doctor Who. And then he literally had more work than he could do. It's very, very famous thing that they were, the last couple episodes of Hitchhiker's Guide, the radio show, they were recording it hours before it was to air and mixing it live. It's just absolutely insane. So define the conditions of your success against a realistic timeline. If you want to say, hey, I want to get to the moon in a year, it's going to seem impossible because it probably is. So set yourself a really good goal. Time. You have more time than you think you do. Success is not an instant thing. So number 2, time. You're running out of time. Nobody gets more time. Rich, poor, successful, unsuccessful, time is the one resource you cannot get more of. That is it. So the Romans famously have a saying, and I'm a guy, so I always think about Rome, like all the time. So, memento mori. But it's shown up in pop culture too. Chuck Palahniuk, through his avatar, Tyler Durden, has a great line that really impacted me when I read it. And it's, you have to know, not fear, know that someday you will die. Until you know that, you are useless. And it's just, we're all on a ticking clock. And pay attention to like rich or successful people. They pay attention to every single second. And yet our society and our culture, it trains us to devalue our time, and we waste it on like frivolous entertainment and social media and reality TV. So pay attention to your time. The third thing, and this one offends me, and I take it very personally, sometimes you have to do the thing you're supposed to do. Not just talk about the thing, not outline the thing, not get your workspace perfectly so that you can do the thing. Those are all important, but you actually have to do the thing. And on my con bag, I have a little patch there that I've caught some flack for some. It says, hope is not a good plan. It's like a reminder to myself. And as a Warhammer 40K writer, I immediately go to, when I hear the word hope, there's a very dark saying in Warhammer, hope is the first step on the road to disappointment. And it sounds especially grimdark because that's what Warhammer is. But Warhammer is satire. And that's the whole reason they're saying that, is that hope is also the first step to anything good you do. But hope is not a good plan. You cannot hope yourself into a finished novel, into a sculpture, into a painting. No one's going to buy hope, at least not yet. You know, if Dan Wells is right, maybe they will. But, but yeah, so hope is not a good plan. So pay attention to that. Number 4, do not be a victim. As bad as things can get, the second you start thinking of yourself as a victim, you start to lose. And that is an insidious cycle that can begin. Because when you start to lose, the more you're going to lose. And when you win, the more you're going to win. It's this weird psychological thing. But if you get into that death spiral, you have to get out of it as fast as you possibly can. And things happen, and ego is a thing that exists, but you can control. When something happens, you're going to have emotions. You can feel things. You cannot control that. But you can control how long you're going to stay in that feeling. And self-pity is a self-indulgent luxury we cannot afford. So you can have feelings, but you can control how you react to those things. How much can you affect the things that affect you? And you have to pay attention to that. Also, be kind to yourself. If I said the things to you that you say to yourself, you'd walk out of the room. You wouldn't stand for it. But yet we put up with our inner voices saying that to ourselves each and every day. And look for excuses. Because excuses, when you have an excuse, oh, I couldn't do this because of that, right? And it's an excuse. They're not useful, but they can be if you look at a useful as a source, an excuse as a source of a problem, right? So if you look at an excuse, find the source, and ask yourself, is there anything I can do about it? If the answer is yes, make a plan, fix it. If the answer is no, there's nothing you can do about it. So don't worry about it. Just move on. And then the 5th one, this is a little bit hard because I'm still trying to figure this out, and it hits a little close to home. But I kind of call it life authorship. And we are people, as humans, we're people of stories and fictions. Fiction is all around us. It drives everything we do. Fiction is so pervasive, we don't even think about it. And a quick example I can use is that everybody in this room believes the common fiction that we can exchange certain special green pieces of paper for time, services, and goods. If one person doesn't believe that, we don't have a problem. That person doesn't get to play in our story, right? They go off on their own and maybe they're a curiosity. But if half the room stopped believing that fiction, we have a very serious problem. You know, if everybody in the room stops believing that problem, then society collapses. Fictions can topple civilizations, right? And so when we think about this, the societies and civilizations that survived are the ones that told the best stories. Because the best stories united us all. Yuval Harari talks about this. You can't convince a monkey to go and kill another monkey because in the afterlife, he's going to get 72 virgins. But we can. And that's why we run the planet. is because we can consolidate everybody to run common fictions. So, which brings me to a fiction analysis tool hopefully everybody in this room has heard of, and that's the hero's journey. And I think the hero's journey, this is where I'm still kind of figuring this out. It might not be 100% yet, but the hero's journey, I think, has been misused. Because when Joseph Campbell started bringing out the hero's journey, he was going, hey, look what I found, look what I discovered. But we're using it the reverse way and saying we're going to take the hero's journey and plug in these things to create a pleasing narrative. And I would say Joseph Campbell did not invent the hero's journey. He reverse engineered it. So I'm going to use the term that he used, which was the monomyth. And he took that term from James Joyce. And it wasn't made to be a checklist to make story elements, and it wasn't made to analyze Disney or Star Wars or Marvel films. And I realize that is one example only now at this point. But it's not just a template for telling a story, it is a blueprint for how to navigate life. And these stories that he was analyzing were not contemporary. They were ancient myths and religious stories. That's where he derived stuff from. So these are messages from our ancestors that encoded things in story to tell you these are the signposts that are going to happen to you in life. But we've put them in stories so that they'll last and you'll pay attention to them. But somewhere that signal got crossed and we lost it. And we have to learn the hard way to rediscover it again. And Nietzsche talked about this, Epicurus talked about this, and Marcus Aurelius talked about this. And Joseph Campbell talks about it, but it's in his later writings. It's not in The Hero with a Thousand Faces. So this is a quote from him. When he found that when he was looking back on his life and his works and everything, it seemed almost like it was a scripted story. Like things were meant to happen the way they happened. And he says, when looking back at your life, you will see that the moments which seem to be great failures followed by wreckage were the incidents that shaped the life you have now. You'll see that this is really true. Nothing can happen to you that is not positive. Even though it looks and feels at the moment like a negative crisis, it is not. Nietzsche was the one who did the job for me. At a certain moment in his life, the idea came to him of what he called the love of your fate. Whatever your fate is, whatever happens, you say, this is what I need to face right now. It may look like a wreck, but go at it as though it were an opportunity or a challenge. Any disaster you can survive is an improvement in your character, your stature, and your life. So, with that kind of an idea, looking at the monomyth, and it's these stories are our ancestors telling us that you can survive after disaster, after what you perceive as a life-ending calamity. If you're still breathing, you're still going. And unfortunately, I had to have that lesson drilled into my head recently in a very, very difficult way. So this is kind of what happened to me. So a year ago, I landed my dream gig. It was an IP tie-in fiction piece of work, writing a novel for something. It was going to be extremely lucrative. It was going to be my ticket out. My escape hatch. I was going to get this, and I was going to be able to quit my job and be a full-time author, and it was going to be, this is it, this is my breakthrough, I'm going to succeed. So if you're familiar with the hero's journey, that's the call to adventure, right? I had my doubts. I was like, am I good enough to do this? This is a huge responsibility, and that's your refusal of the call. So I knew enough to go, okay, there's going to be some hits coming. Right? So the Threshold Guardians started manifesting themselves. I have never been busier at my day job than I was when I was working on this novel. Family responsibilities became non-negotiable. So I pressed through and I delivered. And the editors didn't like what I had in, and they canceled the book. And I was absolutely devastated. I spent a while very depressed, not wanting to do anything. The worst part to me that I felt is when I wanted to explain myself to people. So I kept telling folks in my writing circle, I kept telling everybody, and it seemed to me that nobody cared. They made noises of, oh, that sucks, that's terrible. But it just seemed like it wasn't proportional to the amount of pain I was feeling. So I hope I didn't lose this, but I may have, so it'll be interesting. But in any case, I decided I was going to quit. I was like, you know what? Nobody cares. I'm going to quit. I'm not going to write. I'm going to do what brings me joy. I'm in my 50s now. I don't need this nonsense. I don't need this noise. You know what makes me happy? Is I'm a gamer. I'm a huge gamer. I love video games. So I'm going to rebuild my desktop PC, gaming PC, that I've been neglecting, and I'm going to get back into gaming. I started looking at VR headsets. I started looking at all this stuff, going, okay, I'm going to be a gamer again, and it's going to be awesome. And I was literally surfing and researching a new video card, and I received this. And I'm going to read it to you now. Hello, I am a Warhammer fan for many years and recently read one of your stories, and I adored it. I also made sure all my close friends read it, and it might very well be one of my favorite short stories in the setting. So I almost deleted this because when it came across, it looked like spam. And to give you a caveat on what story this person's talking about is that a year before, I had written a story for Warhammer about one of the most despicable characters in the setting. His name is Lord Commander Eidolon. He is a traitor. He's a straight up villain, not an anti-hero. But they wanted me to tell a story from his point of view. So I had to find a kernel of humanity to try to tell this story. And he is a genetically engineered super soldier who's used to performing at the heights of everything. He's like an expert swordsman, expert marksman, all this stuff. And he suffers a terrible injury, and now he's moving around like he's Frankenstein's monster. He can't react as fast as he can. He can't do anything. And so he's despondent because of that. And that is the story that I wrote. She continues. See, I'm disabled. I have low mobility, and somehow the struggle of Eidolon resonated really, really deeply with me. It was pretty beautiful seeing someone come to terms with their disability. And not only that, but I know half a dozen other people who also feel this way. And we all deeply, deeply love this story. You gave Eidolon some of the best character growth, and I cannot thank you enough for that. You wrote a story that means a lot to me and to other peeps who often feel quite unseen. It was wonderful. So that is the last thing I expected from a Warhammer 40,000 story. And then I started thinking about it, because it had been a year since I read it. So I wanted to reread it and see, is it really as good, or is she shining me on? And I open up the little anthology it's in, and the name slapped me in the face. The name of that story was Amor Fati, which in Latin means love of your fate. And I went, oh, okay, God, I get it. Next time, you don't have to punch me in the face for me to get your message. And then I thought about this. So in the pop culture version of hey, these are the key 6 steps of the hero's journey, they always talk about the black moment or the belly of the whale. But when you go back to Joseph Campbell, the belly of the whale is just one little step. And it's seeded amongst other things, like pleasant things, like dismemberment and brother battle and dragon battle and crucifixion. And you're just like, whoa. And then at the nadir, at the very bottom of the circle, there's something called the supreme ordeal. And that's when the hero almost faces death. And then I thought to myself, well, wait a minute. We do this to our characters all the time. And God made us in his image. So why do we expect the hero's journey, all the steps of the hero's journey, don't apply to us? We don't get to get away with not going through the supreme ordeal. We have to go through all that. It's part of the process. But when you're stuck in it, it doesn't seem like there's anything else coming. It seems like the end, but you have to press through. So to sum up, the first thing is time is an illusion. Lunchtime, doubly so. 2, hope is not a good plan. 3, don't be a victim. And I forget the original Latin for this, but it translates to, it's not about how hard you hit, it's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How hard you can take it and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done. And that is from Robertus Balboa. He was a Roman philosopher. His friends, I think, called him Rocky. And then the fourth thing is, what? Did you not think the monomyth applied to you? You best start believing in the hero's journey, Missy. You're in one. So that's only 4, unfortunately. But here's 2 more for the whole 42 thing. This one comes from the historical records you've been broadcasting into the galaxy from the valiant crew of the NSEA Protector. Never give up, never surrender. And the second one comes from the great publishing houses in Ursa Minor. It's all going according to a plan. It's almost certainly not the plan you thought of, but it's all going according to plan. So don't panic. And that's it. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And this was really an honor for the 42nd LTUE. I mean, I couldn't pass it up. I said I did, but but I couldn't pass it up. I mean, this is amazing. And thank you all for sharing this moment with me.